Okay, I don't really know if I want to do video blogs like this. I'm happy to talk about games and what I'm working on and projects and things, but I don't really like talking about myself, partly because I sort of hate receiving sympathy. It just grates at me for some reason. But I'm here to do a little video blog to talk about rejected ideas and the future of the channel again, which to be fair, I talk about quite a lot on here. So I'm sort of constantly taking stock of what I want to be doing on this channel. And there's some things that are definitive. So we filmed the first series of the actual play show where we're playing Fate. And I've got a 3-part Fate accelerated game that will go out before that because I'm still experimenting with the edit on the main show. And the 3-parter can come out because it's fine. The game is, it works well. But yeah, it's not going to be as polished as the final show. So that's still fine. That's still what I primarily got into this for. And as you've probably seen, I did some scripted video essay blog stuff early on, just to sort of experiment with it. But those are some of the most fun videos I found to make, and also they're generally my most watched videos. So I think I do want to do more of that. So I'm going to do more of those scripted videos, and we've still got the actual play stuff, which is still definitely coming out. We've shot it and everything, and I want to do a season 2, and we're working on all of that. So those 2 ideas are solid. It's everything else that is very up in the air. So first of all, this sort of thing is quite easy to do. I don't think I'm good at it. But it's very easy to shoot this and put it out. And I know a lot of YouTube channels do this. This is not an uncommon format for YouTube, so it's quite it's very doable. I don't always like doing it. I find it, I don't know, I find something about it. I have like a creative block with doing this. I don't always think that I trust that I have something interesting to say, or that me just blathering on about how difficult it is to be creative is always worth listening to. I don't know, I don't like doing this, and it sometimes takes me days to muster up to be able to record this. Like, this is something I was going to record last week, and it's taken me basically an entire week to film this video. But the scripted stuff I have more confidence in. I'm got, it's better ideas, but it takes longer to shoot that and longer to edit it, and it's a bit more complicated. So it's sort of swings and roundabouts. This is very easy to shoot, but it takes me a long time to get the motivation to do it, whereas the other thing I like doing, but it takes a long time to actually shoot the damn thing, because it's a bit fiddly, a bit more complicated. And again, I'm doing this in my free time. I don't have the time to sort of dedicate to this. I have a very limited sort of windows which I can actually film. But the studio is free now, so we finished shooting season 1, we stripped the set, and then now the studio is free and open, so I can shoot more scripted video essay super easy. I couldn't do it for a while, obviously, because we had the set. We put the set up, and then we filmed over a 2 or 3 month sort of period, and it wasn't worth our time taking the set down and putting it up and down and up, down and up. So we just left it up, and it basically took up the entire room. It's not elaborate, but it's enough stuff with cameras and lighting and rigs and everything else that's sort of hovering about. It takes up space. So it wasn't practical. Like I say, we just left it up, and I wasn't really able to do any video essay stuff. I did a couple of things in that, shot a couple of things in that space, but it wasn't really practical to do anything more elaborate. But now I can. Now the space is free, and I can do that, because we're not going to be filming again for several months. September time is the most likely time we'll film season 2. So that's all good. So I've got some months to shoot some proper video essay stuff, like the early stuff that I did, which I think is my better videos anyway, and those are the ones that have the views, so that I assume that you agree. But a lot of ideas have been rejected. I first made the shooting schedule, the plan was to shoot 3 series this year. We'll shoot and release 3 series this year, which is definitely not going to happen. This schedule wasn't that tight. It was sort of felt doable. But for a variety of reasons, my time just hasn't come together to make that practical. So we'll get season 1 out, we'll shoot season 2. If we can get it out by the end of the year, great. If we can't, no big deal. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. But we'll definitely shoot season 2, and we'll do a funding campaign at some point, around like when season 1 is out. We'll start doing a funding campaign to try and keep this going. because I'm going to hit the wall. By the end of this year, we'll hit the wall of what we can afford to do. Which just is how it is. But you may remember that we also shot a game of Treasure Island. We did that because we wanted to check how we would do a board game setup in the space. How we would do I think we had a 5-camera rig there, or before 5-camera rig, and the audio and all the practicalities of shooting the board and all the players and how it would flow. And it was very rough, fairly basic, but we wanted to test how it would work with the intention of doing that more. But I'm tabling that for now. I'm putting that in the ideas drawer for now. I don't particularly necessarily want to do more board game stuff. I'm still a board game collector, as you can see. I have quite a large selection, even larger now since the Games Expo happened, and I've been to that, and we came back with like 8 or 9 new games. So I'm still a collector, still into my board games. I'm still designing board games. There's the thing I'm doing. I'm always thinking, always designing. I don't think I'm going to do any more video series on that. The original concept was to play the top 100. So just start at 100 and go down 100 episodes, just playing those games, just to see what makes them the top 100 games on Board Game Geek. Which is, if you're not familiar with Board Game Geek, it's where everyone around the world can vote for they give games rankings basically, and then it correlates it, and then we've got the top 100 games of all time. Or top several thousands of games of all time. Their concept was there to go play all the top 100 and to just sort of see what the big deal was. But that was a vague concept, and for whatever reason I've just sort of gone off it. It's quite complicated to shoot that, as you can imagine, and there are other people doing it online already. It's fairly staple of the Dice Tower. We have No Rolls Barred over here. There's other people doing the board game thing. So I don't think we'd be able to add anything new to there. We're not experts like the Dice Tower are. We're not doing it just for the entertainment value. We don't have that kind of the rapport that say No Rolls Barred do. So we just sort of sit into that middle ground of like people who just enjoy the subject, and that could be interesting, but it's a lot of time and effort and money to put into something that you're not like super passionate about, that you're not sure is going to work. So I've just pushed that aside into draw. Come back to it later, maybe, I don't know, but that's been shoved aside, and that's an idea that's been rejected off the bat. We've still got a recording of This War of Mine that we shot, and I will still edit together and I'll put that out, and that might become a mini series on this channel still. So that's still there, that still exists because we've already shot it. But yeah, I'm not going to do a regular board game thing necessarily. So that's one of the rejected ideas. Another rejected idea is that towards the tail end of the lockdown, which was ages ago now, I shot a web series about a writers group that met online, which you can see some clips of now. It worked fine. I wrote a couple of scripts, I think I wrote 3 episodes, give or take, with some ideas for more. But I didn't really have. I was quite demotivated and depressed during lockdown, and part of the concept of the show was born out of that. So that was like a heavy theme, but I just couldn't. Once that first episode was shot and edited, I just couldn't really get into it, and organising it was quite hard. Everyone had different kind of. We just the concept of I had some people who I knew were relatively competent, with a camera, and they could shoot themselves and send it to me, and I would edit it all together, which is sort of a weird way of making a film. It worked okay, but it was also kind of messy to edit, especially on the audio front, and yeah, just trying to do more of it I think would have been more effort than I was necessarily prepared to put in. Like, if I can't get passionate about something, my interest will wane very quickly. I would like to take those characters and the concept and do something with it, but I don't think a web series, especially a web series online, I think it was a lockdown idea. Some filmmakers were able to take advantage of the lockdown and create something interesting. I came to it a little bit late. That was very near the tail end of the lockdown, so it just sort of it could have been something, but I don't think I quite had the motivation to make it work. I don't think I'll come back to it in that format, but it does put me on track as to why I'm doing this. Ultimately, I want to make films. I don't want to be. I'm nothing against being a YouTuber. I would imagine that well over half of the media that I consume is on YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube, but I don't necessarily want to fit into that niche of YouTuber, which is why this kind of video bloggy stuff just doesn't come very naturally to me. I want to be creating, so I want to work on the board games I'm designing, the things I'm writing, and the films that I want to make, and ultimately, and this was always a facilitator of that. It was always an excuse to get cameras and all the equipment out, get some actors together, and create something, tell some stories, and create something, so that we could sort of get a handle on how we would shoot a TV series, essentially, which is what the actual play show is. A very simplified one, because it's just one location with a multicam setup, which is but that's basically a sitcom at the end of the day. They aren't much, there's only a slight more level of complication on top of those. So ultimately it was fueling my learning experience and my network, and getting sort of people on board. Ultimately, I can make films, which I will still do, but I think I don't want to get distracted by anything that isn't facilitating that, which is part of why I want to scrap the board game thing, and the web series thing, that just because I didn't quite have the passion for it. So I don't want to get distracted by other things on my road to my passion of making films. And a web series is a big commitment. I've made some web series in the past, and it really is trying to make a TV show basically off your own back, in your spare time, and it's just sort of a mad way of trying to make a TV show. So I think I have moved to the point where I just think I just want to either make short films, I've got some short film ideas, or I just want to move on and just try and make something feature length. And I've got a couple of feature length scripts. Well, I've got actually quite a few feature length scripts, but only 2 of them I actually think are feasible to shoot, that I will be working on in more earnest. I sort of don't know what I'm doing with the stand-up thing. Like, I really enjoyed doing it. I didn't do it a lot, but it was fun. I think I was okay at it.
If you missed it up top, my name is Kristian, and as you can probably already tell, I'm a lot of fun. Just an example there for you of the kind of fun that I can bring to any given situation. It was a Mexican wave, but none of you joined in, so clearly you're not on my level. I might be a bit much. Perhaps I'm overwhelming you with the sheer force of charisma that I've brought to the stage. So it's all right. I don't want to scare you. I will tone it down. How is it now? Are we okay? We good?
I've definitely got ideas that more ideas for how to do it, or more jokes and that kind of like elements. But like doing it properly is again quite a big commitment. It's quite a, for lack of a better term, distraction. But I could do it in a small scale thing. I would like to do it again. I just don't think I can commit the time to like fully like do it. I've got a surprising a number of friends who do stand up, and it's a big commitment. They run like test shows, and then they have to go to the Fringe, and they're always travelling around performing. It's an interesting lifestyle choice. It's something that I did enjoy and is fun, and I would like to come back to, but I think I'm gonna just put it on the back burner for now.
I've been given the minute warning, so I just want to outline my thoughts on the Middle East and then move on. So, Israel, no, I'm not gonna.
I was at one point looking to run some kind of event, some kind of role-playing, board gaming event. I had a lot of sort of people in those fields who, again, do similar things, but it just seemed like it very quickly became apparent that was a very sort of a silly idea. I know people that already do it, and it's like, again, it's just a huge group. It's just spreading myself too thin ultimately, to try and organise something like that, even though it sort of fit my wheelhouse. It was just sort of a silly idea. But the other thing you may have heard me talk about is mega game. So it occurred to me that whilst trying to organise a regular event or some kind of convention seemed like a mad idea that I just wasn't equipped to do, didn't have any experience, and B, was just going to distract, too much of a distraction from everything else, or everything else was going to be too much of a distraction. It's just to fit it in. But as a writer and designer and thinker, a mega game suddenly seemed very possible. I already knew I had a location, and I knew I had access to quite a lot of technical equipment and things that printing equipment and things like that. So I knew I could create something. So when a mega game occurred to me, it was sort of a lightning bolt striking kind of situation, where I can just create this game that only ever needs to run once. If it works, we can run it again and again, but there's no sort of commitment. It's just a singular event. It's like an immersive theatre, except everyone's playing the game for like a whole day. Everyone has a role and they're doing something within this story that's being told. And it's something that's completely within my control. I wouldn't be relying on anybody else. So if you were doing like a convention, you'd have to get people in, vendors and other people to run games and organise. This is just a singular event. It has a batch of tickets. You come up, I will run the event along with a handful of other people who are sort of who are part of the control team. So it's something that's entirely within my control, which is kind of how I like things to be. So I think that's something that's going to really fit well with the way I like to work and the way I kind of think, whilst I edit the show and everything else. So that was a kind of a rejected idea that became a new idea. The one rejected idea that saddens me a bit is the Blood in the Clock Tower live. I think we did a really good job on that live show. So this is back in 2019, if you can believe it. 2019 Halloween, we did Blood in the Clock Tower live, as we put it on as kind of a performance piece. So we had 8 actors, I want to say, off the top of my head, who were playing the game. But we told them to act it up a little bit and be a bit theatrical about it. They were all actors, so we told them to like ham it up a little bit, or they were performers in some way anyway, at least. And then the audience were the ones voting for who gets executed. The cast themselves would nominate each other, but then the audience got the vote, and it worked really well. I think we had a couple of slip-ups, but we had the overall, people really enjoyed it, and people hung around afterwards to play the game. The game wasn't out at the time. This was 2019, so a percentage of the audience didn't know what the game was. They were just here at this. We were at the Horror Fest, so they were there, possibly just coming on a whim or just bought a ticket just because they saw it advertised. So we couldn't guarantee that the audience knew what they were getting in for. So we had to strip the game down, simplify it a little bit, explain it up top. So we altered the game a little bit, and I would have loved to have done more of that, but ultimately the Pandemonium Institute didn't want to. So they didn't like that. It wasn't like, even though we sold out, they didn't feel that we had made enough. And sold out the first show we'd ever done for a game that most people hadn't necessarily heard of. I think we did pretty well, but they didn't really want the theatrical element of it, or us sort of modifying the rules of the game as much as we did. They just wanted the sort of Werewolf live game show performance, which I don't think is interesting and doesn't really interest me in making. We wanted to put on a show, but they just wanted people to play the game in front of an audience, which I personally think is boring. And that's what they're doing now, as best of my knowledge, at Edinburgh Fringe, with John Gracie, who does Werewolf Live, is running it. I don't know the exact details, but he's producing and running it in that, I assume, game show format. Whereas we wanted to put on a show, but that's fine. They want that version. It's simpler to do that. You can get some comedians or whatever in, which I think is basically what they do for Werewolf Live. It works. I'm sure it's entertaining. I think Blood and the Clock Tower is too complicated for that. I think it's got layers that won't work in front of an audience. Like, we had to eliminate private conversations because you can't have that. You can't have the cast just wander off. And because they couldn't do that, the game had to be amplified a bit. We had to change some of the rules. Some of the roles weren't worth explaining, so we didn't want to explain what the washwoman, the librarian and the chef were doing, so we just combined all of those roles into the investigator. So there was the investigator, because that name makes sense, an investigator who would have one of those 4 powers. Basically, that was what was on our script. They had a variation of one of those powers. They knew some of those things. It just needed to make thematic and mechanical sense immediately to an audience who didn't necessarily have any pre-existing knowledge, which you probably could get away with not doing that now, because the game is out, it's extremely popular. No Rules Barred have a whole series on it, and it's so you could probably get away with that now, maybe, but I don't know for sure. I didn't want to make that kind of show. We produced that single run for the Horror Fest, but anytime we tried to bring it up with the Pandemonium, they weren't really interested. which is a shame. I do find that one a bit of a shame. It would be nice to do some more of that, but now they've just taken the idea and run with it the way they want to, without consulting us at all. Fine, whatever. It was years ago, and we only did it for that horror fest once. But it is what it is. It is what it is.
Good night, sweet princess.
I will mark his death in a traditional and respectful manner.
That was a tangent. I feel like I was very close to a rant there. Okay, I'm going to say, let me interrupt myself here. The main issue with all of this is that I'm not a producer. My other half is I'm marrying a producer, which is a very wise decision of me. But I am not a producer, and I can't get my head around that side of things, the organisational side of things, the contracting side of things. I didn't realise I hadn't sent the contract out for the last batch of shooting that we did until a month after, when one of the performers messaged me the other day, like a couple of days ago, just be like, do we need this contract? It's done. Do you want me to send you the old one? Just just change the dates. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, I completely forgot to do that. So I'm not a producer. I'm bad at it. But I'm gonna, my other half is luckily a genius at it. So that's where I'm at. A lot of these projects sort of fall apart because I just don't have the time or the energy or the intelligence to produce them. I'm an ideas person. I have a fair amount of technical knowledge. I can implement something and get it made. But like the process of making it, I can do. Getting it to being made and then what to do with it after, that's a mystery to me. But the process of making something, I can make something. If you can get the first bit done and somebody else can do the end bit, so the marketing or whatever, then I just slot me in to make it. I can do that. That's my area. I'm going to stop myself from just rambling on whatever the hell. I've got to edit this still, so I'm sure I'll watch it back and like, what am I talking about? I'm an idiot. Oh look, I got cards made. I was handing them out at the UK Games Expo. I got my little Kristians playing cards. It's my QR code to my YouTube channel, which you're already on, so you don't need to scan it. But that's the back of the card as well. One of my thumbnails. Yeah, got cards made. So I was handing those. So if you've got one of those cards at the Games Expo or somewhere nearby, then yeah. The next kind of goal I'm working towards is next year's UK Games Expo. I'm going to hit other cons before then, but we're working on a board game design we've been working on for years with my brother and a couple other people. So we're going to polish that up and get it good to go, hit a few cons with it, and then our launch is going to kind of be at next year's UK Games Expo. We're going to have a booth and we're going to launch the game, launch the Kickstarter there, and then just sort of be good to go. So it's pretty good, I think. But that's a pretty solid place to go from. Meanwhile, we're building this channel, building the actual play shows. Hopefully, we'll have a few series out by that time. That'll be like May, June next year, the next Games Expo. So that's kind of our launch point. So we've got a year to get to that. Have a fully fledged game design company. I'm doing the mega game thing, which is in August, on August 5th. I'll make a proper video about that at some point. I can get back into the studio and make proper videos now, so I'm gonna definitely do that. But yeah, I'll make a video about the mega game thing in August 5th, and we will push the ticket sales now. I've sold some tickets already, so hopefully that's going to go quite well. So I'm going to push for that. Again, links below if you're interested in coming to play that. But that could be something that we could do regularly as well, which is also great. It'll also be a tons of fun, and just keep kind of modifying the game each time, polishing the game each time we play it, and then just really just streamline what I'm all about, what I'm trying to do, with the intention of aiming directly towards making a feature film, probably in 2025, I'm going to say, as a kind of estimate. I'm going to focus on the game stuff next year, focus on this channel, the board game stuff, the company for next year, and next summer start planning the film, which will then shoot 2025. I'm just sort of throwing numbers out here. This is my sort of vague plan. Look at my little stress brain that I got from Cortex. The Cortex Challenge, not for soft brains. I think I got it from Cranium Games. They're giving them out. Someone was giving these out at the UK Games Expo. Little stress brains. But yeah, that's where I'm at. That's. I just wanted to give an update because otherwise I will go weeks without doing this, just because I can't find the bandwidth Can't find the spoons to sit in front of a camera and just talk to her. It's such a stupidly easy thing to do, but really stressful for some reason. It's just, my brain doesn't quite work right. Thank you for watching. Please do like and subscribe. This has not been my best video, but I wanted to give an update because I didn't want to go like several weeks without a video, because it's already been 2 weeks. But hopefully that was filled you in, kept you up to date. Like and subscribe. Check out the rest of my videos. There's other good stuff on here, video essay stuff. I'm going to be working on more of that. Check out all the links below. Get a look at the mega games happening on August 5th. If you want to get into North London and you want to come play a game with me, it's going to be a big group kind of LARPing kind of board game sort of thing. It's hard to describe, but it's just a big, very unique gaming event. And yeah, that's it. That's all for now. I think I've covered everything. If I haven't covered anything, I'll write it in the text here somewhere. Thanks for watching. The end.